The next question is to calculate the medal scores per athlete per team. Now you'll notice that this actually jumps to question 5 because question 4 is something else. And that question 4 is, and you must just make sure that you realize this in your semester test on Friday, and if you write the SSA, and if you write the exam, there will be one question somewhere in your semester test question paper that will ask you to define a method. That method can either be a subroutine or a function. So this question specifically says, write a subroutine called calc medal score that will return an integer value given an integer array of 3 values. The calculation is determined as follows. Add up the 3 values in the integer array once they have been multiplied by the following factors. So element 1, it must be multiplied by 3, element 2 by 2, and 3 by 1. Well, technically, it means you don't have to multiply. But let's go back to our question 4, where we have defined a subroutine called calc medal score. However, you'll notice that I have left out all the parameters in here. Now, how many parameters do I actually need in my question? Well, if you look at this, it says it will return an integer value, which you all know subroutines don't return anything. So when we talk about returning something, you know that, okay, at least there's one parameter that's required, and that parameter will always be by ref because it must return a value. And then the second parameter that they're talking about is an integer array of 3 values. Okay, so let's go back to our code. And what I like to do, this is just me, this doesn't have to be you, is I tend to like to put my return variable right at the end. But if we are going to follow this instruction to the letter, all right, some of you might go, well, the first thing is they say return an integer value given an integer array. So maybe some of you will start off with a by ref. It doesn't actually matter. Your parameter order is not that important in terms of you defining it. What is important is how you define it will influence how you call the subroutine. So over here, I'm going to go by ref, and remember, it is going to be the value I return, and so I'm going to call it RET as, and because I now need to know what type will it return, it will return an integer value, okay? Return an integer value, and the array that you get is an integer array. So we go by ref return as integer, and then remember, because it's an array, typically we use a by ref to indicate that it is for a array parameter. So I'm going to have ARR, open bracket, close bracket, as integer to indicate that this is an array. I know that the size of the array is 3, but I'm going to leave it open. Okay, so please don't put 3 there, just leave it open. It's just going to be an array. That's it. All right, and over here, you'll notice I've got my comment for question 4. And now I am going to write the subroutine, which will return the answer of the sum of that, given that the first element is multiplied by 3, the second element is multiplied by 2, and the first element is technically multiplied by 1. So I'm going to go return is equal to, and I go ARR1 times 3 plus ARR2 times 2 plus ARR3. It's like that. And for those of you who are thinking that this is going to be some amazing code that is going to be so scary because, hey, you know what? You've never seen something like this before. There's a table involved. I think many of you are disappointed that I managed to answer this question in a single line of code. But we're not asking you to do anything fancy. We are simply asking you to add up the 3 values in the integer array once they have been multiplied by the following factors. So the first element must count 3 times. The second element must count 2 times. And the third element must technically count once. That's why I don't even bother to go multiply by 1 there. And for those of you who are like, no, you know, I'm just a bit worried about the order of operations. Just be honest now. You remember you multiply first, so it would have multiplied those, then it would have multiplied those, and then it would have added them up. But if you I just want to make it more readable, then I suppose you can do this. You can go put in brackets there. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you would write the subroutine for calculating the meadow score. Okay, Ale Gavi, would you like to comment about how disappointed you are?
Actually, yes, I didn't think of it as that. I have a different way that I did it. I'm not sure if I'm correct. I stand to be corrected. So how I did it was that instead of having the return, right, the return value, which is AR, which is your array 1 times 3 and all that, what I have instead is I initialized my return 0 initially, right? And then I have my array, which is the first element, as a separate. So I multiply that by 3, and then the second one I multiply it by 3, and then I use a for loop to get a sum of all of that.
Well,
so is that incorrect, or is it?
It's not incorrect. Sounding from what you said, you're basically just going about to perform more calculations before you add it all up together. So, you pre-multiply it before you add it up. And at the end of the day, if it gives you the right result, it is okay. We will give you your marks. It's not an issue. But can you see what I mean by keeping it simple? Don't overthink and don't overcomplicate this. This problem was deliberately made. There's a reason why we deliberately made the array size 3, so that we could actually write the code exactly like this. If the array was a dynamic size array, in other words, we don't actually know what the size of the array is, then we would have to use your approach, because then your approach would be the only way to answer this question. But because we know there's exactly 3, that's why we were able to do it in a single line. All right.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay.